Welcome to the Power of Peacefulness podcast. We're all about bringing peace into your life. If you like this podcast, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. And if you need some extra help, go ahead and download my free resource. You can find that at Sharon McLaughlin MD/workbook. It's a workbook all about peacefulness. So if you need some peace in your life, try the workbook. All right, let's get started. Hello, everybody. Today we have Theresa Lear Levine with us. She is an expert in nervous system regulation and also the unconscious mind. Theresa, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sharon. It's great to be here.
One of the things you speak a lot about is anxiety. And since we're talking about the unconscious mind and nervous system dysregulation, bring us back. How did you get into this? Was there any pivotal moments or any situations in your life that brought you into specializing in this area?
Absolutely. I didn't realize it until more recent years, but I have always kind of been the high functioning anxiety example. And yes, you feel me on that one. So having a lot of anxiety in my own life has led me to be really good at coming up with tricks and tips and ways to work through it. And I'm also a mom of 4 boys. So, that can bring up a lot of anxiety too. And my kids, I've always said, are some of my best teachers. And when my 4th child was about a year old. That for me was when I felt like I was just having so much anxiety, so much insomnia, trying to juggle an at-home business and 4 kids and just really not feeling like I was completely myself or grounded or clear on anything that was going on because things change so much on a day-to-day basis. That is when I actually began to discover nervous system regulation and its massive benefits and started putting them to use in my own life and went from feeling anxious, which often also expressed in a lot of frustration, which, for my human design type is my key that I am not on the right path and that I need to kind of recalibrate, and also a lot of moodiness and temper type things. And I was just not really showing up like the mom, the wife, the business owner, anything else that I wanted to be at that time. And for me, it was a wake-up call to step into a new paradigm, to rewrite my own narrative, and to begin making some massive changes in my life.
And where did those changes begin? Do you remember? Take us back to,
Sure.
Okay, I think it all starts with awareness, right? Like, this is going on. I'm not happy. I'd like to change this.
So there's a million places where this happened along the ways. I've been doing this sort of stuff for over 2 decades now. But the most recent iteration of my business, when it becoming more me, was right before the pandemic. And that I went on a retreat with, at the time I was doing health, fitness, nutrition style coaching, not so much the deep inner work that I do now. And they had an EFT practitioner, like a level 1 practitioner there, who was going to work with us on anxiety. And it was group work style. And like I said, it was right before the pandemic started. On my way to the retreat, which I was driving to several hours, I started to get this kind of feeling in my throat that wasn't quite right. And by the time I got there, I was like, oh, I'm coming down with something. I stopped at the gas station. I grabbed some Dayquil, NyQuil, whatever I needed to kind of get through the weekend because I was so excited to be away. I had a long weekend away from my boys, my house, all of the, normal stuff. I was like, I'm not turning around. But in retrospect, I'm pretty sure what I had was COVID. And I just didn't realize it at the time. This was February of 2020. So, we had just gotten back from Disney, where I'm pretty sure my kids and my husband had it, and then it kind of rippled through. But we didn't have a major awareness of what it was. So I am feeling awful, very tired. My head's a mess. I have a headache. I just kind of wanted to crawl in bed for the weekend, but I had all these great things to do. So I go to this EFT group session, and we're tapping on anxiety. And not only am I noticing that my anxiety is going down and crazy fast, but I'm also noticing my sinuses are clearing. My sore throat is feeling less irritated. And when we were done that and we had a photo shoot afterwards, I actually looked vibrant. When you look at those pictures, you would never know how sick I was in those pictures. But that is when I learned the borrowed benefits that come with nervous system regulation, like EFT tapping, where when we're able to lower the cortisol in our bodies around like one thing, focusing on the anxiety, it lowers everywhere and everything gets better. And it's one of the reasons why I love doing this kind of work as a practitioner too, because at the end of the day, even when I've helped a bunch of people through heavy issues, I feel lighter and I feel better and I get to benefit from the work that they just processed.
Love that story. Tell us about EFT for those that are listening out there that are like, what is tapping? What is EFT? Can you
Sure.
summarize this a little bit? And if you know
Yes,
the origins of it?
absolutely. It is just one tool in my toolbox, but one of my favorites. And it is a combination of ancient Chinese wisdom and modern day psychology. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, but we call it tapping because we are literally tapping on different parts of our body, from the top of our head down to under our arms and everywhere in between, that are these meridian endpoints, which is the Chinese medicine part. If you've ever had acupuncture done, you know those needles get inserted in the different meridian lines in different places that can release the dis-ease that you have in your body. It's no different when we tap on these points with our fingertips, which most people are relieved by because many people do not love needles. We get to express the issue, speak to the negative aspects of it, which I love because we're in this world where everybody just wants us to flip it to positive and forget, all the grief and sadness and anger and everything else that we have inside ourselves. And this is a process where we actually get to alchemize that into a empowerment energy and release the dis-ease. And in doing that, a round of tapping, I would say average is about 5 minutes. You could do a round of tapping in 30 seconds. You could do a round of tapping in 15 minutes, anywhere in between. But in that time, you can lower your cortisol, your stress hormones in your body up to 43%, which is crazy. And kind of like my story where my physical symptoms changed along with my emotional symptoms, the same thing happens. I'll be working with people on childhood trauma. And as we work over a few months, they also lose 10 pounds or something like that. And it's all connected, this mind, body, mental, emotional stuff that we go through. So yes, we get to talk about it. We're tapping, we're releasing, and we're feeling so much lighter. Our perspective changes through doing it. And we really do get to rewrite the narrative. And I love piggybacking it with things that also access the unconscious or subconscious mind too, because that for me gets that full shift that most people are not receiving, that reason why we feel a little stuck most of the time.
Talking about emotional dysregulation, help us out with some tips. I know that we had spoken ahead of time. You talked about how to tame anxiety, slow down.
Yeah. One of the chapters in my book is called Slow is the New Fast. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, I must say, because I have always, we've come up in this patriarchal society where, we prove ourselves through doing and working hard and producing. And there isn't a whole lot of value given to just sitting with ourselves or letting things alchemize or integrate or become. And so learning to do that was big for me because I've always been one to just hustle, strive, push, do, and learning to be, and then realizing that through simply being, I was way more productive and accomplished way more and magnetized way more to myself than I ever could through the hustle and grind mentality was absolutely huge. Our nervous system thrives in slowness. It signals and cues safety to us. And it does not feel safe to our nervous system when we are in that go, go, go mode. So when we can create that safety, we also feel less anxious. And from that place, we can create whatever it is so much better than we ever could if we were almost resisting and pushing, instead of just kind of allowing and being was really kind of the big lesson that I learned there. And just learning to slow everything down. For me, that equated to so much more pleasure in my life. I committed to some major practices in pleasure and slowing down when I wrote my book, because the first 2 times I tried to write my book, it was not pleasurable. It was not fun. And I came full stop every time. So the slowness and the pleasure and realizing that those things have a place in every part of our life, not just in some parts of our life, was a big shift for me and has been a big shift for a lot of my clients too.
You mentioned that anxiety could be a wonderful teacher. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. It it shows us those things that we have yet to face or work on or let go of. And I feel like when we can bring forward those things and greet them and meet them, they lose their power and they no longer seem so significant. I had a lot of that come up recently. I was just on a retreat a couple of weeks ago. I live in Maryland. I was going up to British Columbia and flying there and not knowing also like what I was stepping into. There was all these unknowns and anxieties as far as like accommodations and who else would be there and what we would be doing. What will there be to eat? What will the schedule be like? How am I going to like my bed? All of those things that tend to make me feel a little uncertain and anxious. And in meeting those things and understanding and seeing those and having consciousness around them before I went, I was able to step into it without any kind of preconceived like expectation. I was able to release the release the hold on the outcome that I might have had otherwise and to just be and experience what I was intended to experience in going in the first place. And so much of that came forward before the trip instead of during. And I think that's just part of as we do things like nervous system regulation and subconscious mind work, our consciousness elevates. And then all of a sudden, we're able to meet scenarios in a whole new way. And I think that's part of the beauty of doing self work.
Also spoke about discreetly regulating our nervous system. So maybe if for people that are in a group or around people, what are your
Yes.
suggestions there?
This also was handy when I traveled recently. So I work with a lot of people that have fear of flying or other fears and phobias that do come up in public
Yeah.
situations. And with tapping, if you were doing a regular round of tapping, it is something that people might notice you doing. You're tapping the side of your hand, the top of your head. You might look a little bit like, you're a monkey or something doing these things and talking about your issues out loud. But you don't actually have to do it in that overt of a way. The sides of our fingertips, like where the nail meets the side of our finger, there's meridian endpoints in there on all of our fingers. And we can actually use our thumb to tap the side of our index finger, the side of our middle finger, the side of our ring finger, and the side of our pinky. And we can stimulate a lot of the same types of endpoints that give us an energetic overhaul while instead of talking about, thinking about the issue. And so much can dissipate that way. And for me, when I was having a little bit of anxiety, like on the plane on my trip, I just had my hand in the pocket of my hoodie and I'm just sitting there, thinking about what's going through my mind and tapping my fingers inside my pocket. Nobody can see and nobody knows. And I also teach my clients to, when they're having trouble going to sleep at night because something's on their mind, instead of even tapping anything, we can actually visualize tapping the points. Now, this might require your listeners to actually become familiar with what tapping itself looks like to begin with. And I have some great resources that can do that. But once you're familiar with the process, then you can close your eyes, you can visualize your fingertips tapping those points, and you can also imagine in your head the same phrases that you would say out loud. And it's uncanny how well that works, almost as well as doing it, full force.
You talked about the mind and the talk, like talk therapy. And sometimes talk therapy doesn't always give everyone the results that they're looking for. Could you talk a little about that?
Yeah. I mean, talk therapy does serve a great purpose, and there's so much value in doing talk therapy. However, it occurs more like the frontal lobes of our brain. Now, when we bring nervous system regulation into our talk therapy, then we get to, with EFT tapping, for instance, go directly to the amygdala, that little almond-shaped part of the brain that is in charge of the fight, flight, freeze, flee, fawn, flop, all those Fs that get in our way and muck up the works. We get to calm that first. And then from that place, we get to bring in the change that we desire. And it's more easily integrated and accepted because our body is open to it. Our nervous system is open to it instead of trying to talk through something while we are literally in a fight or flight response. So that is a key difference. And it really does honor the fact that we are not just our thinking mind, and that there is more to this picture than just the words and the thoughts. There's a whole body to regulate along with all of that.
All right. We also spoke about blocked energy. And what do you do if it's keeping you stuck? You don't know what the next move is. You don't know how to move forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think energetic blockages are honestly the cause of any dis-ease that we are having, whether that is that we're procrastinating or that we are avoiding stepping into our fullest power and success, that we are experiencing physical pain, whatever the case may be. And I think that you can recognize your blocked energy in the pain that you're feeling, be it emotional or physical. And then it's a matter of moving it. I love to look at our body in regards to like our chakras. We have the 7 main chakras in our body. And when we're trying to do something in our life or manifest, if you will, we're bringing energy down from the top, from that 7th chakra where we have this great idea about whatever it is that we want to do. And in order for that to become our physical reality, we have to bring it down through all of the other energy centers to the root chakra, where it then can become a physical reality. And most people don't have too much of a problem actually bringing things into their physical reality. It's a matter of what they bring in. And I think our blocked energy is really telling as to what we're going to produce. Because if we are trying to manifest abundance or a business that we love that doesn't make us work 80 hours a week or whatever, but we have in our heart or in our throat or in other centers of our body this pre-programmed information about how things are supposed to go that might not be in alignment with that, it will twist the thought into a totally different reality. And you may start with that idea of that perfect, business or that wonderful 20-hour work week where you're still, making more money than ever and you're feeling free and in control of your schedule or whatever. And you might still end up with 80 hours a week feeling like you're a slave to the grind. And that's how the blocked energy can kind of ping things around and change your outcome. So when you start noticing the things that don't feel in alignment in your life, that's right where you can go to figure out what needs to be regulated and what needs to be made feel more familiar. This is where I love subconscious mind work, because when we're not hitting our goals or achieving things in the way that we want to, there's usually a story that we are just addicted to telling ourselves, that we just love more than the outcome that we say that we want. And when we can rewrite that narrative, then we can actually show up in our life in a totally different way.
Great. So many great tips. You did mention chakras. I'm not that familiar with them. Could you explain to me and also the listeners out there that I've heard of them, but I really don't know much about them at all?
Yeah. I mean, kind of the 1,000-mile kind of overview over top is just that we have these different energy portals in our body. And there's more than the main 7 of them, but those are the ones that we really kind of focus on. And they relate not only to like the part of the body where they are, but the different organs in those areas. And they also can relate to different themes or times in our life. So I spend a lot of time, the bottom chakra is the root chakra. And we have the sacral chakra and the solar plexus and these lower chakras. And those tend to be where our past traumas and those things that happened to us long ago in childhood or our teen years or even, a decade or so ago happened that created these patterns that we now are trying to break. And I feel like for most people that I've worked with, we could probably spend a lifetime just working on lower chakra work. There's a lot to be resolved there. But when we can free up that energy, then we can really step into a life by design and showing up in the way that we're intended to, instead of with whatever kind of generational or tribal influences have kind of been overlaid on us and into our energetic system. So yeah, I look at them as a guide. It's our energy anatomy. I think that's the way that Caroline Myss, who I'm a big fan of, kind of states it, that the chakra system is the anatomy of our energy. And just like understanding the anatomy of our physical body, when we understand this more, then we're able to integrate more of what we know and to show up differently in our lives.
This has been wonderful speaking with you. For people who want to work with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best thing you can do is to just pick up your phone right now, hop on Instagram. I am at Theresa Lear Levine, and just send me a one-word message. Send me Sharon. I'll know that you listened to this show, and I will hook you up with amazing tapping sessions. I have a resource that has over 70 different tapping session videos in it. And I will also grant you entrance to my awesome free community where I have over $10,000 worth of actionable and truly transformative resources to aid in the regulation of your nervous system and the rewiring of your subconscious mind. And I will give you a generous discount if you choose to move forward and do this kind of work with me also. And that's the easiest thing to just pick that up. I will also give you a link for your show notes if people are not on Instagram, so that they can also access the tapping sessions and my community and everything else.
Tell us about your book.
I'm sorry?
Your book.
Yes. Yep. My book is
Love
also
the
in
cover.
the link that I will have in there.
Very peaceful, guys. For you on YouTube, you see it. For you on the podcast, you don't see it. But it's water and forest to me and trees. And I love nature. Tell us about your book.
Yes. Thank you for that question. My book came out last year. It's called Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. And the book contains a lot of actionable things that you can do that will really help making the never-ending journey of becoming one that you can enjoy getting present for. There are bits of my stories in there. There are bits of my client stories in there. There are EFT tapping sessions that you can do. There's a whole website that goes along with the book. Once you have it, there's a QR code in there. You can get hypnosis audios and videos to do with me and everything else in there. And yeah, the idea is just that we really can learn so much from our subconscious mind and from our nervous system. And it's totally possible to step into the person you feel like you're meant to be in this world and to keep doing it over and over again. There's no ceiling to our becoming. There's no ceiling to our pleasure. We have a ceiling to our pain and our suffering and everything else, but our potential has absolutely no ceiling. And the more that we learn to access and step into these things, the more fun we can have with it, honestly. And that's really what it's all about. So it's my journey as a mom, a wife, a business owner, and so much more, and translated into things that the readers can use and apply to their life.
Theresa Lear Levine, thank you so much for everything, all the information you provided to us, and all the resources that you have available for our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for your interest in hearing about them, and thank you for having me on the show, Sharon.